This is why we call it tragedy. Back to me, come back to me, to me. Note to self, I miss you terribly. This is why we call it tragedy.
And welcome to this week's episode of Ballhawk Lab, the first and only video baseball podcast for Ballhawks, by Ballhawks, inspired by Hall & Oates. Tony, what do we have on our register this week?
We have a lot of people's names. We are going to have I believe we're going to go through a hit list, which is probably not accurate because I think instead we'll talk about the All-Star game, maybe about Bryce Harper's hit list or wish list, Evie. A little bit out there. And then also talking a little bit about just the All-Star game in general, and then kind of doing a quick recap of my travels, which I think will focus a lot more on the new Turner Field, SunTrust Park. So that should be do you want to get into the nitty-gritty and talk about your home stadium?
Well, I think we've talked about it a lot, and yet the more and more I dislike it. I like the overall atmosphere of the surrounding area, and I think even some of the areas inside of the stadium, like the Memorial or the area, is pretty nice inside with how they remember their retired players and the history of the Braves. The Monument Garden area is pretty nice. And we've talked about it a little bit at the gates. We talked about it, but at that point, Atlanta's gone from probably the best stadium in the league to probably the worst stadium in the league. And the only thing that makes it, that gives it any sort of reprieve, is that it has 2-hour gate times, better than an hour and a half gate times. But even then, it's still 30 minutes less than what we had last year.
And so, the game that I went to, it was especially bad because we had maybe a half an hour worth of batting practice. The Braves just finished up theirs, so got a few minutes of them, and then the Astros hit, and it seemed like they really only had one group hit. I think that was because of the massive amount of young kids that they had that circled the field shortly after. So I think that they cared more about parading the kids out there than actually taking BP. So that was unfortunate.
That's a normal ritual that they do, though. They kind of have a regular parade around the field between that time batting practice ends and they're getting the field ready. It may have been that the Astros just chose to do a optional batting practice that day. There's also weather that came in.
Yep.
Right about the time they were ending. So I don't know if they just decided to do an optional or they did an optional because they knew weather was coming. So what the reason was, but that's been batting practice for pretty much the past month, almost going into a month and a half now, with rain in the afternoon and batting practice getting washed out.
And you talk about later gate times. You also have to factor in that they're also starting the game a little bit later. So yeah, you get that 2 hours, but that means gates are opening up at about 5:30, which sounds like there wouldn't be a lot of time. But when you have a 7:30 start, it can be a really late night at the ballpark, especially when our game was delayed maybe 15, 20 minutes because of a little bit of rain.
But that's better than having your game delayed 3 hours when there's no rain at all. You're saying
that would never happen.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's kind of an oddity. But if something were to happen in, say, the nation's capital,
Washington,
and or Ottawa, maybe, where you say there's a rain delay, but it doesn't rain for 3 hours, and then you decide to play? Just because you don't want to start the game and then turn it over to your terrible bullpen.
To be fair, it did rain somewhere.
It did rain somewhere, and I think it actually did rain at that stadium very, very briefly. Like maybe 15 minutes.
That can be rough.
Anyway, so Tony,
yes,
I know you kind of talked.
I will. I'll kind of condense the recap, and like you said, we did talk about it on the At the Gates show, and then I covered it a little bit later on the episode after that. My impressions were that it's just as bad as you said it was, and even that, like, it's probably a little bit worse, because I think that you'll have a little bit of sentiment, and it is nice to get a nice shiny new stadium, but like we discussed at the game, just even throwing all the ball hawking stuff aside, the stadium itself, once you're in there, not only does it feel claustrophobic, like you can't really see outside of it much, you don't have a really good view of anything. There's nothing distinguishing about it. You have a giant scoreboard, but that's not Atlanta. You pointed out that there sometimes is a little bit of water towards center field. That's not on a lot of the times. And the only other thing that you have that is kind of cool are the two light up Braves stuff. So the tomahawk that's chopping, or the big A out in right field, kind of by the foul pole over there. But nothing that takes your breath away like most new stadiums have. So I feel like that's a little bit strange. And what did you kind of tell me? Because you kind of said something interesting about where they may have put the emphasis instead of the stadium.
Most of everything that is neat about the stadium are places are not going to go to. Their club areas are top notch. I think they could probably rival any other team in the league. The first level is very nice when it comes to your club tickets. No, there's an infinity level that's right behind the home plate that, no, it just has normal food, has a nice air-conditioned lounge, but nothing special in there. But when you get down on field level, those seats have a very exclusive club with your free food, and I don't know what the drink situation is in there, but it's very nice. And you can watch players come in and take some swings in the batting cages during the game, from a window within inside of there, and then even down when you're getting the tickets that are costing you, I think it's $250,000 for a 4-year lease, or because you have to buy 2. No, you're talking about your lobster tail and your steak and all your even higher end beverages and foods and everything else down there. They have wine closets and wine lockers, and so it's more catering to the people that really don't care that there's a baseball game going on.
Yep.
No, I think the best view of the stadium that you can get, or the best views that you do get from the stadium, are from the upper decks where you can see downtown Atlanta off in the distance, as well as Buckhead, which is another part of the big time of Atlanta. And then behind the stadium, there's some pretty nice natural topography as well, with mountains and the highway meandering through all of the woods coming to the stadium. Is pretty nice views as well. And the sun sets back in that direction as well. So you do get some pretty decent sunsets there also.
The thing that I'm thinking of that you also told me is that there was a lot of emphasis on the stuff that is outside of the stadium, almost like they put enough money to make a modern stadium in that area, but then all the excess money kind of went to making sure that the land around there was developed, which
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the total cost of everything was just under $1 billion. And I think the stadium itself was somewhere between 600 to 700 million. So when you look at the stadium itself, it's a new stadium, but it's almost, no, 3/4 of that money went into the stadium and another fourth went into the stuff around it, which doesn't seem like that big of a discrepancy. But when you're looking at the actual size of what they've done there, I think a lot more time and effort could have been put into, well, I don't want to say time and effort, but a lot more forethought could have been into, all right, how can we make this stadium special? Because it's not very special.
Agreed. So overall, I think it's fair to say that my impressions, I was left cold, especially coming off of.
You're not cold.
That's true. I was left. I was left sweaty and disappointed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're right. It was rather. It was a normal hot Atlanta summer day down there. Is that fair?
I would say that, yes. And I would share in your opinion of ballpark, and that it's a ballpark. I'd almost say it's a glorified minor league stadium, because some minor league stadiums ahead of it, just when it comes from the experience, because there's not much to it. It's just 4 bases or 3 bases, home plate, 90 feet apart, and a wall, and stands behind it and all around it, and you throw some hokey things here and there, and some things that are cool. I think the entertainment they have for kids that aren't really into the game for a full 9 innings is great for a family, because maybe you want to take your kid out there, or somebody wants to take their kid out there to help whoever's more interested in getting through the game. But yeah, like we've really said, there's nothing special about it. And when you look at it, you take that and then you add a ball hawk standpoint to it, it's much worse. So
yep. There's a lot of areas that you don't have access to, and that is usually, especially in the stuff that we like to do, which is catch baseballs, that is not good news. The one shining, like the silver lining to all this, is that I had a seat that was very nice, and I ended up actually going home with a foul ball that was caught right off the bounce, which is very nice, especially because it had the really cool inaugural SunTrust Park Stadium logo on it. So that's really cool. But even then, I only went home with 3. So it's safe to say that it's a tough park. Yeah.
Well, you can also look at it as you've gone home with 3, but that's halfway to the stadium record as well.
Yeah. Wow.
It's either 6 or 7. I don't remember what it is.
So let's see. Nationals have the All-Star game next year. Do they have 2020 lined up at all?
Announced Detroit, I believe. Cleveland will be the year after, and then the next years have not been announced yet. So I think they may have announced Cleveland at the State of the League press conference they had a couple days ago, right before the All-Star game. So going back to Jacobs, or not Jacobs Field anymore, but Progressive Field,
yep,
in Cleveland for next year. So it could be pretty interesting. But I think the main thing is that this was the first year that they went back to the All-Star game, not deciding a home field advantage for the World Series. I didn't care either way with that. I think something needed to be done, so to try to keep the game ending in a tie, and that's what we might try to discuss a little bit here in a moment, or kind of ring that bell for you.
That sparked a thought. So when we talk about some rule changes, remind me game ending in a tie, and that'll spark it.
Okay.
So
because I think we might be thinking the similar thing.
okay,
I don't know what you're thinking, but I think it might be along the same lines.
I think
But
so.
I think the main thing is really bringing excitement back to the All-Star game, which I think the players involved have a lot to do with that. I think this year, with it being in Miami and Giancarlo Stanton being, a very sexy player himself, and how far he hits home runs, and of course everyone being so enamored with Aaron Judge so early in his career. I think there was a lot more hype around it this year than there has been in years past. And I think the game itself was a lot more entertaining than it had been in the past. And for me personally, the thing that a lot more neat for me, one, I just been to that stadium, so I was like, oh, I just been there. But Robinson Cano taking the picture with was like not Jerry West. I can't think of his first name.
Yeah.
West. His last name is West. Joe West.
Joe West.
That was neat because you could really see that the players were a lot more comfortable and a lot more relaxed in this game than possibly years in the past. Kind of like that laid backness to it. Tony, I don't know if you were able to see any of it or any of your thoughts of it.
Yeah, I pretty much watched the entire thing. Like you said, the thing that I really liked about this All-Star game is the fact that there were so many young stars in it, and I think that that's a really good bright spot for the league. If the league is going to have an All-Star game that basically doesn't mean anything, then they really have to market and show off these young guys and make it enjoyable, not only for them, but for the fans. And I think that they did that. I know that some baseball purists are going to hate some of the things that they did, but if you can show them having more fun, if you can get some of those on-field interviews, get some of those neat new angles that you can get through different camera work, or have the interviews on field. I know a lot of people aren't fans of A-Rod, but it doesn't matter ultimately. It was just cool, and I think it appeals to a broader scope. And I thought that the game was good, especially for a 2-1 game. It would be nice to have some more offense, but that's a different point. But even if you say that the game itself was a little bit of a lull, you can't deny how awesome the home run derby is. The new rules for the derby that started a couple years ago have just made it so much more entertaining. And these young guys that are just absolutely destroying the ball now, I would say that the home run derby might be better than the All-Star game now, and it might actually rival at its height. I think the NBA slam dunk competition was one of the biggest competitions for any type of All-Star game. Home run derby might be trying to take that title again.
Yeah, and there's two things. One I really like about the home run derby, and one I think kind of irritates me a little bit. I love the fact that you have stadiums that have short porches and areas where a player could literally hit the ball out of the stadium. I know it's probably too hot in Miami to open those windows, but if they did, it would have been great to be able to see baseballs flying onto the street and then people running through the streets trying to grab them. That would have been awesome. But the reality of it is, it's too hot in Miami to be able to do that. The only thing I didn't like about it is, and I get the head-to-headness of it, where you have one person hit 15 and somebody hit 14, and then another round you might have someone hit 5 and someone else hit 7.
Yep.
Well, you're now eliminating the better home run hitters because of the head-to-head.
And you're having a lot more guys not finish their rounds, because in a few of those rounds, it was the second person who won, which means that as soon as they go one ahead of the other guy, they can just stop. And a few guys had a few minutes left. So if it was more of at least the first round, kind of like almost like a ranking system where the top 4 move on, you would have guys that would have to take all 4 minutes of their hitting rather than half of the guys taking 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I think if if they could work out that part, and I get the excitement of that they're going against one other person head to head, but I think if you want to get the best home run hitters at least into the final four, let that first round kind of be for seeding, and you'll still get that 4 minutes of putting up. Now, you're still going to have that excitement. Maybe the second person hits 12, and then you're having the seventh person that's trying to 30 seconds left. That excitement is still going to be there. Because I think Span would have moved on if it wasn't for him going against Sanchez. Sanchez put up a monster number, and Stanton struggled at the beginning, but then he made a huge run and hit some bombs, but came up one short from advancing. I don't remember what round it was. No, I think the same with Justin Bour. He put up a huge number as well, but I don't think he advanced. Maybe he advanced past the first round. I don't remember. He didn't. Okay, but you have players putting up these huge numbers that aren't advancing. So it'd be great if you could, just have that first round for seeding, and then you can go head to head for the last 2 rounds.
Agreed.
And also with some of the excitement, and this is twofold because Bryce Harper suggested a way to kind of make things a little bit more interesting in the All-Star game. Robert Manfred had a retort to it as well, which I'll cover in a moment. But Bryce Harper said that it'd be so much more exciting if you could take the top vote getter in the American League and the National League and have them draft teams. So then you could have Harper go against Scherzer, something that you're never going to see in a game unless one leaves, where you could have teammate against teammate and just kind of bring something new to the game. I personally like this. I think it brings a new wrinkle to it. It kind of would make things even more exciting to a game that's seemingly on the uptake right now. Tony, what do you think about Harper's idea or any other ideas on how to make the All-Star game more exciting?
I think that something similar did happen in the NHL All-Star game a couple of years ago, and that kind of goes back to their history within hockey of kind of the pickup game where everyone kind of divvies out sticks, or they have 2 captains and pick guys. So I would say that you can even make it hokey where your 2 vote getters then have to do the old hands on the bat type of routine and then see who gets to pick first based on that. I just think that would be pretty awesome. NHL ran into an issue and had a big TV show to show who got drafted, and it just got to be too much. But if you put these guys on the spot, line them up on the field, and do old like gym rules, just like I said, with the hands on the bat and stuff, and make it go quick, it could be really fun because then you could also have the people in the stadium start to shout up for who they want each team, and you can almost divide it like left field is cheering for the away team, right field is choosing for the home team, and they're just yelling at Bryce Harper or whoever. I think it could be a lot of fun. And the only other type of voting system that might work as well is maybe you do away with having the fans vote in who gets to be all-stars, but the fans could choose which teams. So they would be given a pool of 50 players and be told, all right, you go vote on which teams you want to see, and based on some weird math that they look at, they can then decide, all right, people want to see these teams.
Yeah, and I think they asked Robert Manfred during the game about that possibility. He pretty much struck it down, saying that there's nothing wrong with the All-Star game. He kind of took the old man yelling at a cloud and kind of said the game has been played this way for so long. There's nothing wrong with it the way that it is, so we're not going to do that. And I think there's a lot of things that Robert Manfred has kind of gotten right in his first year as commissioner, but I think there's equally as number of things that he's gotten wrong. And I think this is one of them as well.
Agreed.
I think anything you can do to make the game more exciting, give it more thought than being asked about it in an interview and just shooting it down automatically.
And
So
I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, it's a game for the fans and the players. So let the players or the fans decide what they want to do. I mean, does the commissioner's office need to have that much of a iron fist when it comes to, give it a try and see what happens. That'll come back a pretty positive feedback from it.
It's also kind of funny because as much as he's steadfast in saying there's tradition with the All-Star game, he also wants to implement a lot of new changes for the actual regular season, which would be rule changes that have a lot more lasting effect and can impact the game and possibly outcomes of games that matter a lot more than having impact on a game that now doesn't matter because it doesn't decide anything. So I feel like if MLB wants to test things, if they want to shake things up, what better opportunity than to actually do that with the All-Star game? Because ultimately it now means nothing. So why not do something big and have it be a celebration of the fans and the players?
Right. And you talked about it being a tied game and having an idea of how to handle that. What was your idea? Because I think, like I said, I think we might have the same idea on this.
I was talking with a guy at work, actually my boss, and we mentioned the home run derby, the All-Star game, and how it went into extra innings. And then I thought to myself, and I brought up the idea, why not at the end of 9 innings, if it's tied, have some type of home run derby, almost like a shootout in hockey. Mm-hmm. Each team gets to pick 3 or 5 guys, depending on what type of rules you want to use. And each one gets 30 seconds, and whichever team has most home runs between their 5 guys is then the winner.
Decent idea. That's not what I think, more along the lines of what baseball had discussed at the beginning of the year. And that was exciting during the World Baseball Classic a lot more than I liked it a lot more, is put runners on second and third, or put runners on first and second, or maybe second and third, so you kind of take the double play out of it. But like you said, if you want to try things that are your ideas, do it during the All-Star game.
Yep.
Put runners on second and third and let it play out from there. I think the game's going to get over pretty quickly from there, and then you won't have to worry about running out of pitchers. Maybe give them the 10th inning to try to get through it, but after that 10th inning, nope. Start with second and third and no outs.
How about this? If it's tied after 9 innings, you can no longer use your pitchers. So basically managers have an incentive to use all of their pitchers in the 9 innings. Once it goes into extra innings, you let the position players pitch. Everyone likes.
Or you could do like.
It increases.
Or you could do pitch like they do in the 4 and 5-year-olds.
That would be awesome. It'd be weird to see Chris Sale come out and pitch to his own team, and guys are like a little bit lower, right? Yep, right there.
Just another thought, but I think, and I hated the idea when I first hated it. And I don't think I'd like it for regular season Major League games, but I did like it for the World Baseball Classic because it felt like it brought a lot of excitement to the game. And I think whatever you can translate over from the atmosphere that was created then in any sort would be great.
Agreed. So these are just a few options. I'm sure since Rob Manfred watches our show, one of these will magically pop up and all of a sudden be his idea and be implemented for next year. But I guess we're still going to watch it. It would just be nice if at some point MLB admits that they watch this show and maybe rewards us with some type of salary or ability to go to more baseball games. Just something. I mean, we know what's happening.
Yeah. Or our show on the MLB Network as well.
It's true.
Taking that Winnebago across the country.
On the road with Ball Hawk Lab.
That's right. We could have daily shows. Maybe we would have someone driving us around so we could have these shows.
And probably some type of veterinarian to squeeze my dog's anal glands. Or maybe you said that you learned how to do it, so maybe you can do it then.
I did watch a video on what went into the expression of one's anal glands. It was very interesting because it was narrated by a British woman.
Oh.
Who made such a disgusting what's the word I want here? Disgusting chore. Very pleasant.
Yeah?
I mean, when you put a British accent on anything, it makes it much, much more pleasant, I think.
Did she describe the smell?
No. Oh, what do you have there, Tim?
No, just flashing some professional leather. That's all.
I like that leather. I've seen some pictures of that leather and a little article on it. One from Mr. Moustakis.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything else other than big congratulations to Pittsburgh ball hawk Eric Jabs on the welcoming his fourth child, I believe.
Show off.
Maybe fourth. Yeah. We were debating before if it was a toss-up or if he caught it.
Yeah. I would hope it'd be on the fly because you don't want to see babies bounce.
Not at all. But congrats to Eric Jabs. I mean, it's pretty good timing as well, right over the All-Star break.
Yeah.
So big shout out to Mrs. Jabs as well for getting it done over the All-Star break.
And for holding on to it that long.
Yep.
It ain't easy.
I wouldn't know, but I don't think it would be.
I used to be one.
Oh. All right, on that note, anything else from your end?
I don't think so. The dog is even telling me to wrap it up. Hi.
So let's crank it up, and we can do this again next week.
All right. I don't really have a Hall & Oates song picked out, so I'm just going to go to a random – I don't know. I'm going to go to a random song. Is that okay, everyone? Yes. Vomit coffin. Are you going to send it back?